I can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. Now you can
There
hear
you
me,
go.
right?
Yeah.
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 Well, I'm sorry, Amber. I thought you had said yes. I forgot that I muted to cough.
Yeah.
So everybody, welcome
Okay.
to Age of Radio, Mercury, your home for podcasting and other pop culture news. You're watching this on a Thursday. Yes, I know you're used to seeing us on Friday afternoons, but we're starting a new segment called Meet the Creator. And I'm super, super excited to have our very, very first Meet the Creator segment on here, Amber
Sure.
Warnock-Estrada. So, Amber, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm more nervous now. I had no idea it was the first. I didn't know it was the introduction of this segment.
That's okay. I was talking for 5 minutes with it on mute, so no need to be
Good
nervous
point. Good point.
we
Yeah.
always have things that happen on this.
Yeah. We
So
can't
let
have
me give you a little bit of an intro to everybody that's out there. Amber is an emerging writer whose long-standing ambition to create comics is now actually a reality.
Yeah.
Their debut project Champ marks the beginning of her work in the independent comics space. Through this first publication, Amber aims to establish a foundation for a sustained career in storytelling, offering readers a narrative centered on conflict, emotion, and personal resilience. Support of their work contributes not only to the launch of Champ, their very first comic, but also to the development of a new voice in independent creative publishing, which I think is interesting because, as we'll get to in here in a little bit, I know that you are a young face on the
Yes.
independent comic creator scene, and I kind of want to dive in a little bit about that as well today.
Of
But
course.
before we get into this, how has your day been going? Did you have to work today? Were you off today? Were you hanging out?
So
What
I
have you been
work.
up to today?
I mostly work from home right now. I have a reporting gig with a local like journalism outlet. And so I actually was working on a story pretty hard since I woke up. Uh, Took a break to do this, which I'm very
Nice.
excited to talk with you about. Yeah. Oh, I had something. Oh, I remember. I was like, oh, I thought I had something to respond to in that intro, and I was like, oh, right, you guys have good copywriters. I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
Thank
like,
you.
I don't remember submitting a synopsis, and I was like, oh, you
Yeah,
must
yeah,
have,
yeah.
yeah.
No, I what I did was I wrote it up. I'm not gonna lie, and then I put it in some into ChatGPT, and then I
Mm,
fixed all the things that ChatGPT did stupid with it, and then I
yeah,
rewrote it again, and then I was finally happy with where we
yeah,
landed. And since you didn't say anything, I was like, okay, Amber will be fine with this as we go out.
yeah.
What if you don't mind me asking, and if you don't want to share it on here, that's
Sure.
okay. What reporting where do you do reporting at
Oh,
or
so
with?
it's actually a nonprofit. They're called the Community Sentinel. They're a national organization, but they have us tell local stories. So I went to this kind of training seminar the other day where they were talking about like how to testify in front of the Arizona legislature and how annoying it is and terrible.
Yeah, wow. I do want to say this. I do love your glasses.
Thank
I've
you, thank
ever
you.
I saw them. I think on maybe on one of the videos, but I'm really big.
Yeah.
I have my contacts in right now, but I'm
Mhm.
really into wearing like the larger
Yeah,
lenses.
round frames
But
is everything.
they look really good on you, especially with your
Thank
hair.
you, thank you,
So I don't know, something that stood
thank
out.
you.
And so I know that we have some stuff that we want to get into. I'm gonna get us started talking about Champ.
Mhm.
In Champ, you tell a story of an elderly man who's in a nursing home who gets pulled into a brutal underground fight club, which
Yep.
I think is really interesting. Can you elaborate on that story a little bit? I don't want you to give everything away because I want
Of
people to
course.
go and purchase it and be a part of maybe the next Kickstarter that you do if you end
Yeah.
up going that route. But can you elaborate a little bit on that story a little further, so that
Yeah, of course.
we can all get a better sense of it?
So first, something I really appreciate is that I've never heard anyone read the log line without chuckling a little bit. I think that shows I kind of got to the point that I wanted to get. I kind of wanted it to be something that you would be a bit taken aback at because I feel like that's the kind of thing that does draw you into read, is to prompt you with questions. And the reason that that kind of story was appealing to me is because comics are a visual medium, and I felt that I wanted to do something that took advantage of that. And I feel like with our character, our main character who is struggling with various mental health disorders, I feel like you really lean into the subjectivity of his experience, where you're not sure what is reality and what is purely not necessarily delusion, but just his experience of the events, his reality, so to speak.
Right.
And oh, sorry, what's up?
No, continue.
Okay. Um, yeah, and the Fight Club was kind of a way to circle around a theme that I wanted to discuss of just how from the moment you're born till you get old and die, there's a lot of just like exploitative industries out there that kind of expect you to fight every moment of your life. And this kind of asks the question of like, is that what you're really here for, or is there something more that you could push back through that barrier? And that really comes into like an emotional core of the story, which is that our elderly protagonist does have a daughter who he seems to be estranged from, and so kind of seeing them reconnect is something that I want the audience to have in mind and kind of like be hoping for, despite the troubling situation.
Yeah. So what kind of happened? What was going on when you were thinking about this? That like, did you have someone that was in like did were you close with someone that was in elderly care, or were you doing underground fight club stuff at the time? What like that? It seems like a really
Yeah,
weird play. Like it seems like there had to have been
yeah,
something that
yeah,
was going on in your life, or someone that you had, I guess, an interaction with that had something to do with some of these
yeah,
things to kind of spark, I want to see what this looks like, or this led me to, a thought
yeah.
provoking concept. What was that?
Yeah, I mean, in the most abstract sense, I could say that I've had a lifelong fascination with combat sports, especially and hospice care, funnily enough. But
I was
more
just going to say,
specific,
or you had a
yeah,
long history with
yeah.
elderly care.
Well,
Yeah.
well, more specifically, what it is that and this kind of gets into my background as a writer a little bit.
Yep.
I studied screenwriting in
Hmm.
college, and that was very much a last minute decision. I was going to go into law, and then I was like, oh shoot, I don't want to have no time to do anything to enjoy my life. So I like last minute pivoted. What do I like? Okay, I like creative stuff. What's something that uses a lot of different creative stuff? So I can just kind of find myself anywhere. Movies. Movies have writers, actors, sound, all of this stuff. So I really stumbled my way into screenwriting. Um, and as I was doing that, that's basically where I started to blossom as a professional writer, someone who wants to do it like as a career, not just think about characters because I like D&D or whatever.
Yeah.
And I lost my grandfather around the same time that I was starting that degree, and so a lot of my first screenplays are you could really tell if you because they're bad because it was my first ones, but you can really like it's very transparently like me just sorting through my grief, and you can even see me kind of mature in my ability to talk about those themes. And Champ, I wrote shortly after I graduated, kind of like got through that period of my life, and it really felt like me laying that theme to rest of just kind of mourning my grandfather and what I didn't get to say, how he did affect my life positively, and a lot of it also from not only because that's people in my life, but for me personally, it was even just a lot of anger at the world,
Yeah.
because of for a lot of different reasons. But like I said, it's just kind of the situation where you're like, again, like, oh, sorry, what's up?
No. You mentioned Amber that one of the things that you were trying to play with the themes inside of Champ was this concept of
Mhm.
people, going throughout their life and maybe
Yeah,
not living their life. Do you feel that some of that thought not only came from you kind of looking at your own life, as you said, with being a lawyer, like being a lawyer and
yeah,
working 130 hours a week and not enjoying
yeah.
life, but you also feel that like maybe some of that concept came from how you felt about how your grandfather um lived his life?
It's funny. I actually do think that it has more to do um, with myself somewhat, and I think that's
Hmm.
because of I am trans, and so there is kind of an aspect of having that dual identity almost for a lot of your life. And I know a lot of people who unfortunately just stay in the closet for a lot longer than I did, and kind of look back wishing they had had something sooner. and I find myself as being very grateful that I did have that experience. As in, like I did come out
Yeah.
relatively early, even though I was still an adult. I didn't until I was an adult, but even then, again, like I said, sometimes people become elderly before they do.
Yeah.
And I really, that is something like I think we all fear getting older, you know. But I kind of wanted to show that it's never too late to kind of have that restoration and kind of just like take control of your life. Because oh, shoot, what was I saying? Sorry.
No, you're fine, Amber. Take your time. I
Yeah,
asked a more deeper
yeah,
question there, so I definitely understand it. Thank you for
yeah.
sharing that
Of course.
about being trans and
Yeah,
about that. Did that impact you being trans? And then I'll move on to a little bit more about Champ and show some
yeah,
of the images here.
yeah.
But did being trans does that affect like how you write about things? Like in the
I think
storylines you
so.
tried?
I think that I would say that most anything about someone is going to affect how they write, especially when the further you get into writing as like a technique, the more you kind of realize how these things are like unconscious. You become more conscious of them. So I could say that as much like, but it only affects it as much as like me coming from a poor upbringing affects how I write, and just like all of these different things that show my perspective.
Yeah,
And I remembered my last thought. Sorry, but
absolutely.
it was just another thing that has been an inspiration for Champ is that I noticed in a lot of horror recently, there's this perspective where age and the elderly are kind of like there's a lot more cases where they've been put in the position of like the menacing thing because we are afraid of getting older. And I kind of
Yeah.
wanted to show that there can be salvation in growing older, that there is still always, like I said, there's always that next step after it where, you know, there's
Yeah.
something beautiful in there.
Absolutely. And so this is your first comic, is that
Mhm.
correct? Not obviously, probably not the first time you've written stuff because you mentioned that you wrote
Yes, yes, yes,
screenplays
yes.
and
This
so forth.
this is
Um,
this is absolutely my first comic that I wrote from idea to script to now producing and printing.
yeah, I'm
I
gonna go
mean,
ahead.
unless you, oh, sorry, I was gonna say
No,
unless you
go
want to
ahead,
count
Amber.
like unless you
Go
want to
ahead.
count like comic strips in like first grade
Yeah.
on the back of my notebooks, like this is definitely the first.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead. I just want to show some of the stuff from the Kickstarter
Okay,
here. The Kickstarter is currently it funded.
you did, yes.
The full thing funded. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Got a pledge of 3,500. You exceeded that at 3,670. I know originally you were trying to get on here during the campaign,
It's
which would have been
okay.
a really good play. So Amber, what
Yeah,
I can promise you this time, moving forward, is when you do your next one, if that's the route you do, or
I will
anytime
let
you
you
want, you
know.
just reach out to me. We'll jump on here and we'll talk about
Yeah.
what you have going on. Because it's important to me from Age of Radio's mission, which is
Yeah.
the company that I own that
Mhm.
does podcast hosting that puts on this show Mercury as well.
Mhm.
Our goal is to help creators get the spotlight and help independent
Yeah.
creators achieve what they want. But so you got this story done. Walk me through some of the creative process that turned in. So you did all of the writing, you had a
Yes.
team around you, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But I mean, talk to me a little bit about coming up with the character and the creative process as I go through some of these images.
Yeah. So this character is Jose Herrera. I don't know why Joe is always the default male name I go to. But again, I do definitely think there is some influence from my grandfather in this character, especially because, like I said, I lost my one grandfather when I was just starting writing. I should have mentioned I lost another more recently. So kind of upon the conclusion of the story. So like I said, it's this jumble of emotions that I think it would have been impossible for it to not make its way into the work. And it's kind of like I said, there's also kind of an aspect of identity in there, especially in masculinity, which is funny because I'm a trans woman, but that means I have a complicated relationship of growing up as a masculine person, and this here, the champ, kind of represents that masculine ideal, that like person you're always told you're supposed to be, you know. And so there is kind of a aspect in the story where you're trying to figure out like, is he a memory? Is he just an ideal? And of course, that is our cover art by the great Niccolo Arcudi, where I kind of wanted it to represent a vintage boxing poster, so that's why we threw it up. because again, I think it's just one of those things where you see it on the shelf and you're like, why is this grown man beating on an old man in underwear? Like, and so it's like, love it or hate it, you're gonna open it.
Yeah. So they're forcing them in the comic. They're
Yes.
forcing them to do the underground boxing, correct? Or the fight
Yes.
club.
So that is actually there are real life situations, and I will say I did not base my story off of any directly on any of those real world situations, because I thought that would have done a disservice to those like real victims and would have been kind of like exploitative.
Yeah.
But it has happened before in which elder care facilities like this one, they've discovered that there was like a fighting ring between the patients organized by staff, and that was definitely a kind of core part of this premise. Which is funny because I remember that being a big news. Like I remember one of them being a big news story. But then everyone I've talked to about this project is like, "That's such a unique idea. I've never heard of that." And I was like, "Okay, maybe
Like,
I was."
well, it's actually happening around the country, and
Yeah, I
it
was
has
like,
happened before.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who I've given the premise to that were like, "Oh yeah, healthcare is bad," and I'm like, "You got it. You pretty much got it." Like I was like, "You figured it out. You caught me."
So why are they choosing and if, I know we don't want to give everything away because
Yeah,
people can go and still buy they can
yeah.
go and buy this now, right? Or they can't get it anymore since the Kickstarter's over.
So you cannot get it currently. I will be opening up sales again later because right now I'm just trying to focus on fulfilling the orders of people who backed the Kickstarter. So they're obviously going to get priority.
Yeah.
I will be printing more copies than were ordered so that I'll have some to kind of continue selling. I'm hoping to show up to ASCAP. That's a convention we have in Arizona around February. I am planning to head to San Diego Comic-Con as well. There I will probably just be attending because as far as I understand, boothing is very expensive.
Boothing is very expensive there, and it's also hard to get new into it from what I hear.
I'm sure. And so I'm definitely planning to open up online sales as well. But I don't know the first thing about web design, so I'm still figuring that out.
Yeah, which brings me well real quick. So, before I get into the next question, you had mentioned that so are they betting against them in the Fight Club? I don't want to give everything away. What's the purpose of them doing this?
Yeah, so the gist is that the members of the staff are betting on their patients in a fight club against one another, somewhat for just sheer like degenerate entertainment, but also there's some kind of hints that maybe the administrator of the facility kind of has some leg in it.
Got it. And if people want to find out what that leg in it is, then you need to follow Amber and make sure that you buy this when they're able to. When she puts them back on when they go on the market again.
That is what I was going to say. Is that I think the best thing to do right now, if you're interested in reading, and I thank you for first of all, thank you for being interested. I would just follow me at Instagram, and I'm on a couple other platforms as well, but Instagram is definitely the most active. But I'm on Twitter, Blue Sky, the whole 9 yards. And I'm putting out more updates all the time about Champ's fulfillment because we're kind of getting through that process. The biggest announcement, I actually haven't put this out yet. Our artist, Jesús Diaz, who's amazing by the way, she just got paid out, which basically means I got the funds from Kickstarter and I said, okay, you now have everything that I'm going to pay you for.
That's a good feeling, which
means it's guaranteed to happen.
Which is a good segue into my next question. So Joey, who owns the Geek Collective that's a partner with Age of Radio. So Age of Radio and Geek Collective and Joey own Geek Collective together. And so we do a lot of Kickstarters and PR stuff. And it can be very challenging. So you being self-published and doing this, what's been your biggest challenge that you faced so far? Because you just mentioned too that you're starting to get into doing the graphic design, nothing about, or not graphic design, the web design, and you know nothing about the web design, so you have to go into that. So I mean, you technically are an entrepreneur now. So
that has been the weirdest part. So graphic design too. I actually that is the answer to your question. Is I self-taught myself every part of this process while I was doing it. I think that I had the idea in July. Finished the script in August, and then in September, researched how to do a Kickstarter, set my launch date for October 2nd, launched in October, and successfully funded it in October. So it was really lightning speed, especially because I also secured an artist, secured a cover artist, secured a graphic designer, all of this stuff. like again within the span of like 3 months. And that is
tell me about that, because
yeah.
you did that in 3 months. That seems pretty. I mean, you did this pretty quick. There are people that we talk to, or that I talk to, that
Yeah.
have an idea, and then I talk to them in a year, and they still have the same idea.
That
So
is
what kind of pushed you to do this, and what was that? How did you go about finding everybody?
that is a big thing, is that I definitely used to be that kind of person, and it came through noticing that everyone was that kind of person, where I started like resent myself for doing that. So I was like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna finish a project. I'm gonna do a thing. I was like, because when I was growing up, like part of why I didn't like aspire to do comic writing sooner, because it was very immaterial to me. I didn't really understand like how you could go about building a career in this. And I was like, well, why am I just waiting around for the answers? Let me seek out the answers. And I was like, okay, you have to have something like if you want to get picked up at any publisher, whether it's big two or indie, you got to have something made. So I said, okay, I'm gonna make something. And I had thankfully already read some books on comic writing. Thank you, Brian Michael Bendis. I took a course, all of this stuff. So I was well prepared, I think, but I still had to self-teach myself all of that business acumen. Um, for the graphic design, the three main members of my team were graphic designer Hannah Collins, interior artist Jesus Diaz, and cover artist Nico Arcodi. The graphic designer, thankfully, already a friend I knew. I had him design logos for other friends of mine. Like I'd recommended him out before, so I basically said like, okay, I'm going to hire you again. He designed the logo for Champ, which seems to be like one of our best pieces of marketing. It's the main thing that I keep hearing people say, "Oh, I've seen that before," and I was like, "That means it works." And then for our artist and cover artist, I'm not kidding. I met them both on Reddit. It's r/comic book collabs. I was literally just like, I don't know like comic artists. I was like, I only know like illustrators, which means that like they're not used to like figuring out like layouts of pages, let alone like page rates. And so I just found several different people that I was like interested in, but nothing jumped at me until I saw Jesusa make it like a for hire post. And again, her art is so distinct and her layouts are so like chaotic, and I felt it was perfect for the kind of like subjective, like delusional experience our protagonist kind of goes through.
Yeah.
And
So real quick, when we look at this
yeah,
here, so these
these are
illustrations,
Jesusa.
this is
Yeah,
Jesusa.
yeah.
Okay, so
You can
she's the
also
one
scroll.
that.
You can also scroll down to the preview as well, real quick, right below that. So yeah, this is what I mean in that like she doesn't do, at least in this book, she doesn't do the traditional like gutter space. It's a lot of it is basically just like the background is more or less like a canvas,
You're
and then
talking about
everything's
these
kind of
here, right?
yes, these pages here, yeah,
Right. So yeah. So the
yeah.
background, you have a canvas, and then you have the
You still have
boards, or these.
paneling, and your
You
eye
still
is
have the
still
paneling here, but
yeah,
then there's still this like this
yeah.
other background design.
And so you're still guided, and,
Yeah.
and that's what kind of stood out to me is I was like, it's so like chaotic, but you still follow the action in the order you're supposed to follow it, so it still works. And that's the thing is I wanted to put together something that was uniquely mine, storytelling wise, and was like something you haven't seen before if you picked it up off the shelf. Because I think that standing out is really important. But kind of like you said, and the advice I keep hearing from anyone else who's like more established in comics, getting something done at all is like an achievement.
Well,
um,
right.
yeah,
Doing whether
yeah,
and this
yeah,
seems like I'm really interested in this storyline, and I'm really
yeah,
interested into picking it up. Because again, I didn't. We went back and forth. I didn't go look at the Kickstarter beforehand, and then you were like, "Well, the Kickstarter's closing," and then I was like, "Okay, let's still get you on the
yeah,
show so we can talk about it even over the
yeah,
Kickstarter's over." But after like researching it, I'm really interested in the
mhm,
storyline, especially based off of the themes that you were talking about
yeah,
with the not only just the Fight Club part about it, but looking at the struggles that we experience all throughout our life,
yeah,
and maybe looking at back at the regret that we might have, or
mhm,
what's happening to us into the future, because even though he has the issues that he still has a life to live, and he's still being put into rough situations even
yeah,
in that life. So I'm very interested in that. But like this, like here we have this paneling here, but then this cool background is also a piece that spreads out
yeah.
throughout the image.
It,
So
it,
does Jesusa do that in a lot of her other in how she just does them, or did you guys come to that conclusion when you were trying to figure out how you wanted to do this?
I've seen her do this a lot on splash pages, um, and we do have a few of those in the book. But I I did notice that, yeah, sometimes she does do the more traditional like paneling. And it was definitely something we came to though, because she kind of asked like, because I basically saw her portfolio and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I asked her like, hey, I want to work on this, and she basically asked like what kind of stood out to me about her, and like I said, that kind of page layout was a huge
Got it.
attraction to me.
Yeah. So then you also had Nicola Arcuti. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Am I saying that right, or did I
I think
completely
it's
butcher the
Nicolo.
name? Nicolo. Oh yes,
Yeah.
Nicolo
You can just say
Arcuti.
Nico.
Nico. So that's a good. That's more my speed. So he did the cover art.
Yes.
And then you then were just responsible for the entire the
Yeah.
story, and then like the dialogue, correct?
Yeah, kind of the process of an editor as well, where I'm kind of just again like checking through each process. But I do think that having a dedicated editor next time would be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely my role. Is I wrote a script that has like the description and the dialogue, and then I've been kind of now as we're doing it helping to rework how that dialogue is going to filter in. Because there's some moments where I was like, you know what, I think the art speaks enough for itself. I think maybe we don't want to have this much be said. Maybe we want to cut down and make more room for this. So I'm kind of helping Jesus with the lettering as well. And Jesus is doing the lettering, I meant to say. And I'm kind of just helping the editing process of that, of like filtering what to put where.
Fantastic. And if you guys are just tuning in, I know that we have some live listeners right now. If you can go ahead and like this, share it out. Again, this will be on demand, and we'll be putting this out on our RSS feed that will be going out to Spotify and all the other podcast distribution platforms as well. So if you're just tuning in, this is Amber Warnock-Estrada. You can follow her at Amber W. Estrada. That's her Instagram handle. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Twitter too.
And Twitter. So make sure that you follow Amber. So Amber, my next question for you. So it looks like you have the physical releases.
Yes.
You did some other physical releases as a part of the Kickstarter that was Champ Noir and then Champ Espanol.
Yes.
So can you walk me through a little bit about what each of those are as they relate to special editions?
Yeah,
and
sure.
then how that idea originated, why you picked Noir and why you picked Espanol.
So on the base level, I just wanted to have more to be able to give people who were giving more. I felt that if you're willing to spend a lot on the campaign, you should get your money's worth. It's funny. Noir, very impersonal. Espanol, a lot more personal reasons. So I'll go with the impersonal first, the more boring one, which is to say that like releasing the original inks is cheap. They're already made. And it's again something that I thought would be a cool collector's item, and is something that again you can just kind of get extra if you went to those higher tiers. Espanol, I kind of wanted for a few different reasons. Number one, my artist Jesus is Chilean. Spanish is her first language, because I kind of wanted to be able to honor not only her but like her peers and her audience. And so if she wants it as a portfolio piece, it's in her language as well. And of course, I'm also I'm Mexican, and I'm not fluent because my grandma did not teach it to her daughters, one of whom is my mother, because she was basically like abused throughout school for not speaking English. So that language kind of got filtered out over time, and I've picked it up myself. But again, it was just kind of important to me that I kind of I kind of like reemerge that heritage from the ways it was attempted to be stripped from us, and just something that I thought would be cool. Something that
do you have other parts of inside of Champ that have other heritage or other Mexican like influences that show up inside of the comic in the original, or is this just something that you did for the Espanol piece? Like you said?
The Espanol is truly just a Spanish translation.
But in the original,
So
go ahead,
our main character is Mexican, and I do think that informs a lot of how I wrote him and how I see him. I should say that he specifically does not have a lot of dialogue because he is just like very elderly, and but the other figures do, of course. But I actually like built the champ persona off of a Mexican boxer. That's actually part of why I chose boxing. It's a very Mexican sport, if you didn't know. And there have been people who really got to the top and were the best to ever do it, but then came crashing down from tragedies, pretty much. And I just felt that that would be a good way so that a Spanish like to me, I'm like a Spanish speaking audience who will be more familiar with Mexican boxing will say like, hey, I know this, and to kind of have it be more recognizable. You probably saw in the page, but the champ himself is dressed in a lot of Americana, almost like Apollo Creed kind of stuff, where he just has like the USA boxing shorts. That's just kind of a way to filter in some themes that I wanted to talk about, you know. Because again, like I said, if it's in a comic, I want this story to be told as much through the visuals as it is told through the or through my words. You know,
yeah. So is this kind of like a stand again? And you know, I'm open if you don't want to go deeper into it, but I do want to ask it. Is this kind of like a stance at America versus Mexico, as it relates to maybe deportation or how the United States has been against, you know, like Mexican
there
relations
are
over the last
definitely
12
shades
years
of
or
that.
20 years or 30 years?
Yeah. Well, that's what I meant for his whole life.
Since Arizona was part of Mexico.
Yeah, there's I always find that, sorry, not to get into like a tangent, but I always find that funny when people are mad about like people not speaking English here. I'm like, yeah, you know, like this was Mexico like a couple like not that long
ago, really.
Yeah, like,
in the scheme of it, yeah. No,
yeah.
But continue. Yep.
Anyway, yeah, there's definitely shades of that. Like I said, he's the champ who's like the younger man he's the masculine ideal, he's youth, and he is kind of America in a way. Jose, to kind of answer your previous question, I always wanted him to be dressed in greens, it's the Mexican flag. You could even see that on in his like collection of old stuff. There's some Zorro comics, and that's just kind of it is this kind of visual storytelling going on that I would definitely ask you to read into. I don't like telling people like what to take away from my story because I think there is a lot you can take away from my story. Because I guess the best, most concise answer is to say yes, it's definitely about what you're saying it's about. It's not only about that, but you can definitely read things into that, and you might even find stuff that I slipped in that maybe I wasn't even conscious of. I think the biggest part of that theme, unfortunately, comes in at the very end. So I don't really want to spoil it, but
don't spoil it. I don't want you to spoil
exactly.
it. I want people to go and buy it.
Exactly.
So that we can get more of them.
The best way we incorporate that is literally like on the final page. So you'll have to read it yourself. But I'm really proud of what we did. Again, visually and narratively. I think like this is what comics is for, you know.
When you do the next, you know, I know we'll talk a little bit more about a little bit about like what's next for Champ, but if you do more Champs comic books and continue, are you going to try to do these special physical editions? Will they always be Espanol? Will it always be noir? Will you try to fit in other themes there that go to these? Because that's one of the things that I really like about Kickstarters, especially when creators are trying to find out, or, you know, trying to figure out other ways to get people more interested in purchasing that. What else can they give at different, you know, levels of, you know, purchase, I guess. What's the word that you use in Kickstarter? The
tiers, I think.
Yeah, tiers. Thank you. At different levels of tiers for the for what they're willing to pay for. So based off of that, I mean, I like that. So do you plan on doing that with Noir and Espanol, or do you also plan on doing it with other things?
So there's a lot of interesting questions to unpack there. Because for one, I don't plan to continue Champ. It is really a one shot.
Got it.
Been meaning to kind of like make sure that was more openly advertised. It is 34 pages, so it is pretty meaty for a one shot.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that can be taken away from it being 34. So it is a one shot. So this is a one and done. So we get the whole story in this whole thing then.
Yes. If there's demand for a continuation, I might think of something, but it's the kind of thing where it's like the characters in this story, I truly feel that their story is introduced, developed, and concluded very well in these pages. And I think that's kind of the merit of it. If you want a completed story to read start to finish, like I have that for you. And I really do have like a lot of other stories that I'm instead kind of going to be working on and starting up next. To answer your question about the editions, would I do alternate editions next time? Yes. Would it always be the same? Definitely not. That's actually something I kind of wanted to get into when you previously asked about it. is so you can get a lot of there's like a lot. I'm one of the other things I've been self-teaching myself is analytics, and so there's a lot of data that you can kind of grab off of the back end of Kickstarter, and at the most base level, it's basically like what did people buy, and the most the most bought tier is always going to be your first physical copy because again, people want it in their hands and they don't. And so everything else above that is basically like people who are really generous. And that's kind of the interesting thing is so Noir had one person who bought it individually. Every other person got it in one of the higher tier bundles,
one of the higher tiers,
which basically just means like they wanted to support me and get the most stuff. It wasn't necessarily about that. Espanol, there is nobody who bought it individually, which mostly means I failed to penetrate the Spanish-speaking market, which is fine because I didn't put out like Spanish ads or anything. So it's one of those things where I was like, is that technically a failure or something I intended to do? Yes, but honestly, like I didn't do the work that you would have had to do for that anyways. And so, but the thing ultimately is, it's actually a tough decision I'm kind of in the middle of right now. Is that I can basically speed up the fulfillment process by a third by cutting the prints of those Spanish language copies. But like I said, it was very personally important to me that they get made. So I'm definitely going to still get it translated, you know? It's just a matter of whether that physical print will be fulfilled. Because on one hand, I was like, I don't want someone to not get what they paid for. So I was like, I'm finding other ways to kind of like still provide that value. But I've also gotten advice from a ton of people who backed Kickstarters or ran Kickstarters. Some people even backed mine. They were like, it's very normal for the end product to be slightly different from the thing that we saw at first.
I wanna get into talking a little bit more about you, but I do have one last question as it relates to the Kickstarter. You had mentioned that you didn't run ads in Spanish or something along those lines.
Yeah.
What did you do for your advertising for the Kickstarter? Did you run paid ads?
So
what did that look like for you for your marketing?
So I actually did not run ads at all. Should I have? Maybe. We'll do that next time.
It depends. It also depends. I've had some luck with it. I've had some horrible luck with it.
Yes, that is what I was going to get into.
It really all depends, but continue.
I have a brother who's in business analytics, and he was telling me what I pretty much had assumed, which is that it's very high risk, high reward. It's like you have to invest a lot of money before you start seeing returns, but then the returns you get are pretty good. And so I considered Instagram ads, but I never did. I never pulled the trigger on it, especially because I don't have a Facebook account. So what I mostly did was personal digital marketing. So I had an account that I was posting on every single day of the week throughout the month of October and the week before and the week after. It was basically just like, here's what is new with Champ. Here is why you should back us. Like all of the stuff that you see probably on most people who run a campaign. I also did in-person guerrilla marketing. That's actually kind of how we met.
That's how we met.
or
how you met Joey.
Yeah. Well, I think you were there. I didn't get to really talk to you.
Yeah,
but
I was
like,
there. I wasn't able to find out who was going to be there. So it was very difficult for me to set up interviews. So what ended up happening was I figured I would go there. No one would really want to do an interview.
Yeah.
But then every single person wanted to do an interview, which I was very blessed
that's kind of what
for.
ended up happening.
But I was like, oh my gosh. So then it was just interview. I literally did interviews straight that entire day.
Yeah, I imagine this is the case for everyone. But Joey basically pitched me on your show as we were talking. Sorry, excuse me.
No, you're
okay. Pitched me on your show as we were talking. I was like, oh great, I would love to do an interview because, in fact, I have a background in broadcast, so I'm like, great, this is like I'm trained for this. And
that's awesome.
But like you said, you were filled up the whole day, and then I had to leave. So I was like, okay, I'll catch him next time. So I sent like the follow-up email and all that. But anyways, yeah, that's what I did at that event. Was I basically had like 45-minute at least conversations with everyone I talked to, just learning about them, you know, and then I would tell them a little about my stuff because that is really the hardest thing about this whole process is I've already got like the artistry down, but the business side of it is it's not that it's difficult, it's very embarrassing. It's very embarrassing to be like, hey, do you want to read a book? But you have to learn how to do it. And what that event did make me feel better because nobody had a business card. Like one guy who was a great artist, he literally wrote on the back of a sticker and gave it to me. I'm like, thanks, man.
Amber, the fact that you mentioned that you looked up, and this might have been because, you know, you said your brother does business analytics, but you've also, I'm assuming you went to I mean, you went to college, I know that part,
Yeah,
but obviously you have a background in writing in some capacity or
yeah,
researching. And so, but you've been the most business savvy for the most part person that I've met, from because a lot of them, they love doing they love making
yeah.
comics. They don't love going out and building a business, right?
Yeah,
And so
that was the surprise. That was the funny thing to me is I was like, oh no, I'm the business person now. I never thought this would happen because I was
hey,
always the art person.
if you can master that side of it, then
That's
you
how
can
it works.
continue to do really, really well.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's funny. Sorry to continue on that point though. One of the other guys who I met who was really ahead of the game was closer to my age. So again, he just does a bunch of social media stuff. So I was like, it really
yeah.
is an advantage to just be on social media already. And yeah, anyways, the other big thing that I did is I designed flyers. I learned a lot of graphic design. I created flyers. I printed them. I then went to basically like every comic shop in a certain mile radius. I had a few that were like starred, as in like I have personally been to this place, so I like have a relationship already with them. I know they're good, or just like I've been recommended to them by someone I know and all that stuff. And then I had a few others that I visited based, and that was, I think, really important in that aspect of the marketing, was just the honesty, not being like, oh, I love this shop. Just be like, hey, I've never been here before. My friend said it's cool. How are you? Do you want this? And the first place that I got in was actually Bookman's. They're a trade store for anyone who
Yep.
doesn't know.
Yeah.
They printed it for me. I was like, oh shoot, cool. And I was surprised that everyone else took a flyer. I was like, literally everywhere I went, they were like, sure, literally no cost to me. And so that was really nice. Because it's one of those things where it's like, even like, it doesn't really matter how much money I brought in from those flyers or any of those networking events, conventions, stuff like that. It's more about building the relationships. Because I've kind of said I'm in to do comics long term, and so a huge part of that is meeting other people that I'm going to work with, for one, but also that might read my book, because it's one thing, and that's the downside of Kickstarter, is that you're going to start out. Well, it's not really a downside; it's just kind of a double-edged sword. You're going to start out with mostly support from just like people you already know, like friends and family, which is again super nice. It's super generous of them, but it's also people like your grandmother who might not read the book, or who definitely aren't following the scene full time.
Yeah,
so it was a big thing of like, I want to meet other people who are already more plugged into it, and that kind of was the surprising thing to me. I was like, okay, wait, we're all in the same boat. We're all like, ugh, I have to sell myself. This is annoying.
Tell me about why you decided to do this as a comic. I mean, you've written screenplays.
Yeah.
Why not write it as a book? Tell me about your history with that, how it went into comics, how you got into comics, and how you got into writing.
So I've been into comics since forever. I think this is probably a story that many people can relate to. But I was bullied in school, and and it was funny. I was not bullied for liking comics, well, kind of, but it was more so that comics were an escape from that, and like mental health issues that I had. And it kind of gives you this like ideal world to believe in almost. And so I always, when I was young, comics I call my first love as an artist, because it was the first thing where I realized like, oh, there's a person behind this who made this for me, and I want to be the kind of person who can do that for other people. That's why so much of what I'm writing in comics is about kind of that inspiration almost. Um, and yeah, I think that you definitely see that in Champ. And why I made Champ particularly as a comic, I kind of touched on earlier. It's, to me, the fact that our protagonist has dementia and shows signs of schizophrenia means he has a very different subjective view of the world from you or I, and so a visual medium is perfect for that. And so it was kind of this perfect crossing over of me being like, I want to finally just do a comic because it's something I've always been interested in, and now I finally feel like I have the tools to do it.
So back to the visual medium piece of it. So with Champ being about under the medium seemed right to be from the visual medium piece. Does that mean that when you go into your next project, because you seem to be very creative, very artistic, and very, I guess, thoughtful in your writing based off of the conversation that I'm having with you right now, are you going to base off that medium on, are you going to base that medium on what the story is? Like, does that make sense?
That's kind of how I've always done it. Is that I've just kind of come up with an idea, figured out what it would be best for, and then written it for that. in like one of my last years of college, I picked up playwriting just so I could better refine not because before I was just practicing screenwriting, and I was like, it's a very specific art and it's very fun. And so then I started branching out to other stuff because I was like, okay, I want to just figure out like storytelling, like mechanically. And it's the kind of thing where it's like a story that is good for a movie is very different from a story that's good for a play, which is very different from a story that's good from a comic. However, I do, like I said, I am in comics for the long term. The next story I tell definitely will also be one that I'm going to want to tell in a comic medium because that's something I also was very familiar with, is kind of translating my ideas between those different mediums of like, okay, this is how I would tweak it to work a little better as a movie, and this is how I would tweak it to work a little better as a stage play, all of that stuff.
Why did you go in? So, is your degree in screenwriting? You said you have a background in broadcasting. Tell me.
So yes,
what's your degree in?
My degree is in screenwriting. It's it's digital film with an emphasis in screenwriting. Is the full
where did you go?
thing.
Where did you go?
I went to GCU.
Okay.
Yeah, and
well, Amber, I'm gonna. If you don't want to answer this, I understand. I'm not to the point where I'm gonna ask hard questions and then be like, you have to answer this type of thing.
Yeah.
Do you mind me asking? GCU is a Christian university.
Yes.
What was that like with you being transgender? Was that I mean?
Yeah, no. That's
if you're like, no, nothing
matters. No, I'll talk
about
it. No, it's a good question.
I'm curious about that.
So yeah, first of all, I was out to a lot of my friends before I came out to my family because it's just hard. It's harder to have those conversations with people you've known your whole life than it is for people you're introducing yourself to the first time. But I was just out to my friends about like my sexuality. I wasn't out to them about being trans yet until like one of my last years or two of school.
So when you say sexuality, so you're attractive to other men.
I'm bisexual. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Got. So that's what they understood you as being bisexual.
Okay. Yeah. And that's actually part of why I ended up coming out. Is I was like, everyone's just treating me like I'm a gay man. That's not really how I feel at all.
That's not how you feel or how you identify.
That's anyways. With GCU specifically, surprisingly, it was fine. And I'm like I said, that's why I don't mind the question. I'm very willing to talk to people about this because I've had the question from other queer people who were like thinking of transferring or whatever. And it's one of those things where, I mean, I don't know if they would like me saying this, but I think there's definitely a stereotype among GCU students that are aware that like, okay, GCU is the school you go to tell your parents that you're going to a Christian school, not to actually do anything, like not to actually do any of that.
Not to do anything Christian related.
Yeah. It's literally like your it's funny because I'm from it's in-state poor kids and out-of-state rich kids, and those out-of-state rich kids are all in like Colorado, and they get to tell their parents that like, yeah, I'm basically going to like a Catholic boarding school, and then it's not like that at all. It's like a regular college. You do have to take religious classes, but again, I obviously didn't mind that.
So were you raised Christian then, Amber? Were you raised?
And I think the environment itself, it is really just going to depend on the circle you come with. I think the school itself doesn't really like push anything onto you. There's obviously going to be students who will, but like that's no one I would have hung out with in the first place.
Okay, so and Amber, I appreciate you and thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
So let's go back to talk. So you were at GCU. You're doing screenwriting then? Is that what you?
Sorry, you asked about my broadcast background. I studied screenwriting, and I did like the program. I liked all of my professors, and my job was broadcast. I was a fighting game commentator for the esports team. And it's the kind of thing where it like sounds like the fakest job ever at first, but it's basically exactly the same.
I don't know. There's someone that hosts someone that hosts the Excel championship in Las Vegas every year, and that also sounds like a fake. So I think yours is less sounding fake than that one. But go on.
So okay, sorry. I guess I should say it sounded fake to my parents at first. Which again, it's totally fair. And so the way I always explain it is like it's like a football game. You cut to the guy in the tie with the microphone, and he explains what's going on to people who don't know as much at home. That's what I did for esports, and I didn't get paid to do it, which is cool. Like that's what I say. I wasn't like at a club or volunteering. Like I was a paid employee, and I even got to travel for it sometimes. I did an event with NASCAR here. That was pretty cool because I did like a Rocket League event. So yeah, it's the kind of thing where I was like. Is it like It's funny because I mean you probably know this. The job prospects in radio are not are dire. So it's
Right.
like so it's not like it was a huge boon to my resume, but I do
Yeah.
think it has really warmed me up for stuff like this and just being able to. It helps that I didn't take a marketing minor because I know a lot of artists do take marketing, and I didn't. So it kind of helps that I was just doing that as a job for like 4 years.
Yeah. So when you were doing the screenwriting, what was the
Yeah.
what was your goal with it? I mean, is it to become to get a screenplay
Yeah.
created as a movie, or
So
what's the idea and the goal
it
behind it?
definitely started as again just like I am blessed enough that I can go to college, so I should go to college. Um, and it needs to be for something, and I would rather it be for something I want to do than something I feel like I have to do.
Hmm.
Because I've seen enough people go through that and then be miserable. so
Yep.
so
Yep.
it very much started as just like this is a thing to do. It's the same way a lot of people probably pick up their major of just like the dart at the wall. But I was just passionate about watching movies, so I was like, surely I can. I had never made one before, which by the way, I was very behind. Everyone else was like shooting on camcorders since they were 4, and I was like, oh no. But that's the thing. It did grow to an ambition just because of the kind of person I am. I loved shooting short films. I love writing them even more. Um, and I think I over time evolved to have a stronger preference for TV writing because that was a class that we took. Because I've always liked the idea of the writer's room of just a place you can bounce ideas off of each other,
Hmm.
and that kind of itself kind of circled me back into comics because I was like, oh, what I like about it is the collaboration where there's kind of like someone that you are working together with. Because not only do I feel like other artists can bring out the best of my art, truthfully, it's also just really good for fighting procrastination. Like someone, like you're gonna get it done because someone needs you to get it done, you know. So I was always attracted to collaborative storytelling that way. But yeah, I think so. For a while, I had an ambition to sell a TV pilot that I wrote. I'm still pretty proud of it. But yeah, right now
That's
it's just
awesome.
kind of a cool skill I have.
So I see behind you have Vertigo,
Yes,
a
I do.
picture of Vertigo, Jimmy Stewart, right? Is that
Yes,
Vertigo?
and that's
So is that
Desperado with Salma
that's
Hayek and
Desperado? Then you have Vertigo.
Antonio Banderas. Yes,
Yeah, so that's one of my. I'm a big Alfred Hitchcock and Jimmy Stewart
yes,
fan. So
I love
tell me
Vertigo.
about. So do you enjoy Alfred Hitchcock? What are some of your favorite movies? Like, well,
Okay.
wanting to be a screenwriter, you probably you love film or cinema or
Oh
movies or
yeah.
whatever you want to call it. So what are some of your favorite ones?
So I actually got into I and this is going to date myself the reverse way. This is going to show how young I am. I graduated high school the year COVID was happening,
Okay,
and I actually transferred to a different school for my senior year. And
because of
so
COVID.
actually no,
I was just kidding. I was just kidding.
that's actually a fair question. It's actually because I had the credits to graduate early, and the school I was at didn't want me to because they wanted to collect a check from me being there for longer. So I said,
Do we
okay,
want
I'll
to
leave.
call out the school here? No, I'm just kidding.
No, I really don't.
I'm
That's why
kidding,
I
Andrew. I'm
almost
kidding.
didn't even share that detail. I was like, because it's not
I'm
like I
kidding,
have
Andrew.
hard. It's not like I have hard feelings against them. Again, I enjoyed my time while I was there, and I mean, like it's not the faculty's fault. It's literally just like, yeah, it's their profit. It's their bottom line.
Right.
Anyways, the place I went to after was basically like a much more artsy school. So like the place I had before never had like any electives that I ever did, and this other place I did everything for my senior year. And one of them was there was a one of the classes they took they had electives, and I was like, oh my god, I've never had an elective. And it's film studies, and that was the first time I watched a Vertigo. And we also watched Rear Window, which I would say is probably my favorite Hitchcock movie. And that's kind of part of what made me go like that is part of what made me make that transition from just liking watching movies to then making them, kind of in the same way I'm doing that transition with comics right now. I think
Yeah.
up there I have the Overlook Hotel and Whiplash, and then I have like a Batman cover up there, and then Marvel vs. Capcom Daredevil. Thank you for the Wall Decor tour.
What do you think? What do you think is what's your favorite? If you had to pick one movie that you could just watch, if you were stuck on an island,
Okay,
and you're like you can take one
okay.
movie with you. What movie
I
are you taking with you?
always used to say Whiplash which
Okay.
like I said I have up there
Yep.
because to me that's a perfect script of just like from start to finish. Like I feel like the artist's job is to like take you on this roller coaster, especially in a movie, of ups and downs and emotional tirades and all that stuff. And I feel like Whiplash
Yeah.
more than any guides you exactly where it wants you at every time. Like it's pushing you in this directions, and then the ending kind of leaves you open to like still interpret a little bit. So I found that very fun.
Yeah.
I
Thank you for
Vertigo
sharing.
is a big favorite of mine though.
Yeah, Vertigo's one of my favorite movies. My favorite Alfred Hitchcock movie is called Rope, which is
Rope's on my
actually
list.
based.
That's actually
Yeah,
one of the only ones I haven't seen. I think I have it over
Rope is one of my
there.
favorite stories, and it's based off of a play. But it's Jimmy Stewart's really good in it. My
Yeah.
ex-wife, she hates Jimmy Stewart, but she can do a really good Jimmy Stewart impersonation. But I'm a huge Jimmy Stewart fan, so um,
Oh, I meant to just to wrap that up. Right now, like I said, I said I used to say Whiplash
oh
because
yes,
of how
yes,
it connected to
yes,
me when I first
yeah.
saw it. And then it was crazy because I like saw so many amazing movies after them because it like became my whole life for a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so now I just say like the thing that's my favorite right now. I'm currently between two, and they're totally opposite. One is The Zone of Interest, which is you might have heard of it. It is a film about the basically the guy who runs Auschwitz and his family, and you just
Mm-hmm.
kind of watch them chilling out at their house, and you just hear like horrible things happening, but you're never seeing any of it, and it's this
Yeah,
very
it's on. I haven't seen it. It's on my list of things that I want
it's
to
this
watch. Is it really
very
good?
compelling take on
Yeah,
because most other movies about the Holocaust are going to show you like directly what's happening.
the Holocaust. Yeah,
Exactly, and I think it's a very compelling take to instead show you. Oh shoot! I'm sorry, I have a long way off. It's a very
Are you
compelling
okay?
take to show you just like the like evil as people just living their lives on top of it. Like that's the true evil of it is that these people just do not care at all.
They're living their life while all this evil is happening.
Yeah, and then the
Yeah.
other one, completely totally opposite of that, is called Bottoms. It's a comedy that came out in 2023. It's about these girls who start a fight club to get laid by
Yeah.
cheerleaders, and
Yeah.
kind of topically
I haven't seen. I know
related.
what you're talking about though.
Yeah,
I've heard that that's pretty good too.
yeah,
You have your YouTube channel,
I
and
do.
sorry, you have your YouTube channel. I was on there, looking at some of your videos and your short videos, and one of
Mhm.
them you mentioned that you think that you might be the youngest person in Arizona's indie comic scene, and
Yeah,
to your comments on that, I do a lot of stuff in the indie comic scene because of Geek Collective and Joey. And you might be right on that. There are not a lot of very young people that are doing this.
yeah,
So do you feel? So I want to ask you, what is your feeling on there not being a lot of young people actually in the indie comic scene making comics or even in the
yeah.
comic scene? How do you
So
feel? Tell me about that.
yeah, that's a great question because I felt I had that idea come to mind, and I was like, this is an easy thing to put in a short form video, and then it like took off more than anything else I've like put out, which is funny because I used to put it on TikTok and it like blew up. And I felt weird about it because I was like, I don't want everyone else to think I'm calling them old, but
Well, yeah, but
also
you graduated in 2020 during
graduated.
COVID, right? High
Yeah, I
school.
graduated high school in
Yeah,
2020.
you graduated high school in 2020, which means that
I
you're only
graduated
what
college.
18,
I was
19,
like,
you're probably
I
what
graduated
20. How old are you? 21, 22?
21. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
42 years old. Most of them are my age.
yeah.
That are
That
at least,
it was.
and again, I feel young, and I
I
don't think that I'm. But compared to
I
a
I
21-year old,
felt
you're
less bad
100
about it
percent
because
right.
when we were at the Comics and Cocktails event, I asked one of the organizers running it. I kind of like had already prepped like, oh, what do I want to ask people to just kind of start conversations? And so I said like, oh, when was your debut? Like when was your first comic you put out? And he was like, oh, so my first published work was in 2006, and he kind of told me a little bit more about it. And I was like, oh, I was born in 2004. I am young. Wow. I was like, my first published comic was this year, but also like I just started doing it.
Yeah.
I've only met one other person who's like around my age, like fresh out of college, basically. And everyone else, like you said, is more middle aged.
Yep.
And yeah, I think well, actually no, because there's a lot of people in their 30s. But it definitely is a thing where I feel
They also
grateful.
might be middle aged though. I think people
Yeah,
underestimate the amount of people that live till they're 80. So
good point. Good
35
point.
is probably more. 35,
Good point.
37 is probably
Good
middle
point.
age
Good
for most
point.
people. But
Uh, yeah,
uh,
I feel very fortunate. Is what I would say, because an experience I've heard from a lot of people is that they were like, I always wanted to do this, but then I didn't because I didn't know how to do it. So then I did a dead end job for like 20 years, and now I
yeah.
decided to do it. And so I was like, I just feel lucky that I came to that realization sooner and was in a position where I can kind of make it happen. Like I said, I've had all of this accidental prep, whether it was through my broadcast job or through screenwriting, and yeah, I would definitely be more excited to see more younger people do that. I took a writing course, and there, like I said, most of them were either significantly older than me, or some were even a little bit younger than me. And I actually thought it was cool that there, because there was I think the oldest guy was like probably in his 60s, maybe older. And I thought it was cool to be like, to just still want to, kind of like I said earlier, just that it's never too late to kind of like go after what you want to go after,
Yeah.
And
Do
so
you think that
yeah,
do you think it's beneficial though, because they might have more wisdom on mistakes
a hundred
that
percent, a
yeah.
hundred percent. I think that writing is something you need to have, like it's twofold, where it's like you need to have, like, it's its own art form, so you can study it as its own art form, and then you need to have a body of work of other people's work. Like you need to have studied other people's movies and books and whatever, and you also need to have like interesting life experiences. And so there's a lot of people who have only like just watched other people's stuff and then have nothing, like have never done anything, so it's just hard for them to like have something interesting to say.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of people who haven't done that are my age, and so I've kind of tried to set myself up the best possible to have that kind of diverse experience. But I think that it is something that you get better with age, because you're just going to keep living more life as long as you take your opportunities to life. Like that's one of the best writing advice you can ever get, is like, if you get the chance to travel literally anywhere, do it. Like it doesn't even have to be out of state or out of country. Like just go anywhere, do anything.
Yeah.
Um,
And Amber, you mentioned earlier
hmm,
that you briefly touched on it, and you've mentioned this multiple times throughout the conversation
yeah,
about, finding that rather than getting stuck in just life going by,
yeah,
trying to finding that purpose, not wasting your job, not wasting a job, not, going through a job that you hate for a long
yeah,
period of time. But then you also touched a little bit about maybe having slight mental health issues.
yeah.
You personally, do you think that those kind of things are correlated in how you feel about the not putting life, like, make taking the most advantage of life? Because it seems like that kind of is kind of a core theme, not only in Champ but in things that you're experiencing. Would you be open to talking a little bit more about that, or
Sure.
what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, sure. I think that um, yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of important to, again, take your life into your own hands and kind of provide it the meaning that you can, because I think there's a lot of forces that are trying to make it so that you don't have meaning. So I think it's art, and I think art is a really powerful thing, because I truly believe anyone can do it. You just need time and effort. And yeah, I think that it's definitely a lot of different things. Kind of like I said, I was like, whether it was my struggles with mental health, my uh, being in the closet, and all of this stuff of
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like, again, just kind of like simmering where I thought I needed to be instead of going where I wanted to go. And it's kind of, and again, like I said, I really want to be able to inspire other people to do the same thing, because where it's just like, yeah, if you have the desire and the means, you should definitely do it. If you have the desire and not the means, you can still figure out how to do it. But
Yeah.
I still think you should certainly not let yourself hold yourself back, because who are you trying to impress? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. That's some great advice. You have a weekly comic book writing workshop I saw
Mm-hmm.
that's on Twitch. And
Yes.
you, after talking with you, you seem very articulate and very
Thank you.
thoughtful about, your ideas. Sometimes I'm trying to get ideas out on paper and I have no idea even how to
It's hard.
express my
It's very hard.
ideas.
Thank
And so I think that you seem to have a really good grasp on that.
you.
But you are 21, and you had
Yeah.
mentioned, do people take do you look, when you're doing the writing, do you say, hey, look, I have this writing background, I've done this writing?
Yeah.
Have you had a lot of success with people that are coming to that writing workshop? And
So
how do you see that evolving?
I don't know if so I should mention the workshop is basically something that I'm doing with some peers of mine. We took a writing
Got
course
it.
together, and we basically wanted to keep meeting afterwards. So I was just the one who said, like, I will set aside the time to make sure I'm always available at the time we were available at, and like put together basically like a lesson plan. And so we basically just do exercises because that's why I don't like calling it a lesson plan, because I like to think of it more as
Got it.
exercises, because it's a thing where it's like some of them look up to me because I have finished a thing now, whether they're younger or older than me. But it's the kind of thing where like I don't think I'm like better than any of them, or smarter, or even more knowledgeable about writing. Even if I am more knowledgeable about writing, I'm like, you can catch up to me pretty easily. Like I was like, you can teach yourself a lot of this stuff. So the way I more think of it as us kind of all learning together and kind of us all practicing that out. And so I just kind of take up the responsibility of like figuring out what people want to practice and what they want to learn about. And I do think that there is like, I'm sure there is a challenge around being young in really any industry. I have been blessed to mostly encounter people who kind of respect that more, where they're just like, dang, this is not an easy thing to do at any point in your life, let alone when you're
Yeah.
like not even established, like you don't have like you don't have anything set up yet. And so I appreciate that. I mean, it's been the same case in reporting. Like I said, my current day job, where it's literally just I would always worry like, oh, am I kind of like they're gonna be like, why is there like a kid here? And no, they're always like, wow, thankfully, thank God somebody cares. You know what I mean? Like, uh, and so yeah, like I said, it's not really like an open workshop right now where like people could like
Got it.
apply or
Got it.
whatever.
I understand. Yeah.
It is very much just like me and some friends are in a fit or in a practice together, and I decided to stream it because I thought might be something that other people are interested in.
Got it. That's really
It's
cool.
something one of the big rewards in my Kickstarter was I call it the design document for nerds. It's something I plan to do for every book I put together, and it's basically like I asked myself like, what would I have wanted when I was like even less experienced, and it's basically like I wanted to provide answers to all of the questions I was aimlessly asking before I kind of found more resources and just put paper to pen. And
Yeah.
because I think that there's a lot of stuff about writing in any art that is hard to teach, because so much of it is about finding what you can do that no one can teach you. And I think it helps to basically just see like, here's my process, here's what works for me. You follow my advice or don't. And it's also kind of just a cool insider look for people who are the collecting type, you know?
Yeah. No, that's really cool. I think we need to have more of those types of things streamed so that people can
Yeah.
also, especially if you guys are doing exercises or you guys are giving each other feedback. I think people might underestimate the importance of feedback in the creative process. So, and Amber, you might have froze there. Are you still there?
Oh yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, you're good. No, you're good. I just wanted to make sure because it lagged for a second.
Yeah.
Live streams are always fun because of the
Yeah.
internet. So to kind of close us out here, Amber, and I appreciate it, and you're such a beautiful soul. I loved
Thank
talking
you.
with you, and learning about you, and I hope that we, get to see each other more at AZCAF. I'll be there. I'll have a booth there, so maybe we can sit down and have another conversation. And so to close this out, so what are some of the things that you're currently consuming, like content, comics? What are the things that you're currently consuming on a regular basis that you love?
Okay, so I just finished 20th Century Men by Denise Camp. He's one of my favorite working writers right now. It was incredible. It's the kind of story that I really wish I could tell, where it's basically like showing you some of the like really bad aspects of how things are, and then also being like, but here's how they could be. And I think he does that better than almost anyone I've ever read. I've read a lot of Daredevil.
Nice.
And I'm also reading more and more of just other people's indie comics outside of Image, because again, I bought a bunch at the comics cocktails.
Okay.
And so I was like, I'm trying to get through those. I also backed a few other people's Kickstarters, just because again, kind of just building those relationships. I should ask, do you know when the next? Actually, never mind. I shouldn't ask that on the air. I was gonna ask if you knew when the next AZ Drink and Draw is. I'm like, you shouldn't say that on the live stream.
No, that's okay. But the answer is I don't. The only thing I even if I did, even if someone told me at one point in time, Amber, I'd probably forget it because there's so much stuff
that's why
I'm doing and going on.
I'm
like, I don't know. Ask one of like I have an assistant that probably would be better to ask about what I'm doing next.
One of the guys at Comics and Cocktails had said that he was like, oh yeah, I'm the guy who always like asks when we're doing the next one and then don't actually come, and I
Comes.
felt really bad because I sent an email being like, "So when's the next one? Just put me on the list." And they were like, "Oh, actually, we're scheduling it now because you asked." I'm like, "Thanks." And then this week I was like, "Oh, that passed. I forgot." I was like, it's not that it missed my calendar. It's I literally never even put it on my calendar to begin with. I'm
Yeah.
getting better about that.
Yeah, the events are important, but I do miss some too. So don't take it. Don't
Yeah,
beat yourself
that's
up
what I
over it.
figured. I was like, we're all adults
What
here.
what are so what's your next project? So you said the next one that you have is a comic. You think again? Is that something that you want to
I
talk about or
I
not
can
yet?
share more about it. I actually have another thing coming after this that I've yet to announce. So we'll hold off on that. That's what I was referring to earlier. But this, what I have right next is a comic anthology called The Great Outdoors. It is about so basically I have a couple short stories from my own experience, whether it was camping or my dad is from like out south, so it's the real like redneck stuff. Because I just kind of wanted to show. I just wanted to do something of a lighter tone because I was like, okay, I kind of bogged down my artist with all these sad feelings. I should give them, I should throw them a bone.
Mhm.
But again, I also thought it would be fun to kind of establish this platform that I can bring other artists and writers onto. So story submissions are open right now. They are going to close on Sunday, so make sure to
Okay,
get
so
those.
what? How do people submit a story? How do they do
They
that?
are on a Google form. The Google form is in my Instagram bio. It is in my Twitter
Okay.
bio. All of that stuff everywhere. I put it on my story like every day, just in case you haven't seen it already. We have some pretty good submissions already, so I'm excited because I've like read through some of the pitches. It's literally just send me a log line because it's the kind of thing where it's like I will be serving as an editor, so I kind of want to work with you on making
Yeah.
sure the story fits our theme and our format. Um, all stories are either 2 or 4 pages. And yeah, I don't know if we're gonna go to print with this one. Because like I said, it's kind of just something I wanted to do to continue practicing my ability to again like put together a project from start to finish. Because I think that's such an important aspect of making it in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's been really beneficial already. And um, the other thing was I wanted to do something self-funded because I didn't want to start another Kickstarter where like still fulfilling the
Right. So
last
this
one.
isn't going to be a Kickstarter. You're going to do
No,
this
no,
just.
this
Got it.
one will
Okay.
not be unless we come out with more issues of this anthology and then we decide to like
So then,
compile
if
them
this
all.
anthology ends up, if it doesn't go to print, it's going to be digital, or you might not even make it that. You're just wanting to see if you can put it together.
It will definitely
Be
go up digitally.
got it. Okay.
And I was saying if there's demand, I might make printed copies of it.
Got it.
And like I said, if the only way I would do a Kickstarter is if we come out with more editions of the anthology and then there's demand for like a trade paperback. I think that would be cool. Um, Otherwise, yeah, it's mostly just an exercise. I'm like
Yeah.
I
That's
have some
actually pretty.
I
It's pretty impressive that you're willing to do that for an exercise to
yeah
understand how to do something.
it
Because from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I mean that's a pretty good thing that entrepreneurs should do. Because then it upskills them so that they
yeah
can get a better understanding of how something works. So that then at a different date, if you want to do something, you have those
yeah.
skill sets.
Like I said, a huge part of it was just that I didn't want to do another Kickstarter so soon, especially if I'm already
Mhm.
feeling the other one. But I did want to make another comic soon, so I was like, okay, what can I do on a smaller budget? like
Right.
and it's part of it. And it's also just like I have a lot of like I said ideas for shorter stories that wouldn't really make sense in a 34-page format, but would make perfect sense in a 4-page format. And I think also that really gets you better at just comic storytelling in general. So like I said,
Yeah. No.
practice makes perfect.
Absolutely. All right, Amber, last question. What's a call to action where you want people to go to your Instagram? What do you want
Yeah,
to tell
please.
people to do
So
next?
follow me on Instagram right now. It's where I put together the most of my stuff, and most other places I post, I admit, will basically just be like edited from my Instagram posts. And I think Instagram is also a great place where I'm putting out like polls and stuff like that for whenever we're doing like community events. I have story submissions open for my anthology right now. Artist submissions will open shortly after those close. So again, please follow me right now if you want to be available to submit to that. Otherwise, you're gonna miss your chance.
Yeah,
Also, read
absolutely.
my
All right.
comics. That would be cool.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Amber. I appreciate you. And everybody, again, this is Amber Warnock-Estrada, the creator behind Champ. Amber, when do you think that people will be able to go and buy Champ if they missed the Kickstarter?
So this is a bit of inside baseball, but I'm still willing to answer. So the date that me and my artist have agreed on like when she will be finished, as like a deadline basically, is January. So I
Okay.
said that the digital release of Champ would roll out in February just to give a buffer in case
Yeah.
there's delays. It felt smart. Um, and I then had the print set for like July or something, just to create another buffer. But I really don't see any reason why we can't start shipping in March, because I've already been talking with like printers around here to figure out
Yeah.
how that
Perfect.
process is going to work.
Well, thank you, Amber. Well, everybody, this has been a Meet the Creator with Amber Warnock-Estrada, the creator behind Champ. Make sure that you follow her at Amber W. Estrada on Instagram. And again, Mercury will be back tomorrow. Our normal show is Fridays at 3:30 p.m. Arizona time. Yes, we're sticking it to 3:30 p.m. Arizona time for right now, not basing it off of East Coast any longer because of our growth here in Arizona and the Southwest. So, again, make sure that you like and subscribe. Follow Amber. Again, my name's Jeremy. You can follow me everywhere at Age of Jeremy. Make sure that you check out all of our amazing podcasts on the Age of Radio Podcast Network at ageofradio.com or on YouTube at Age of Radio Verse. And we will be back tomorrow with our regular show. And in the future, we will have another Meet the Creator. As I always say, be thankful, grateful, and kind. And we'll talk with you next time. Bye, guys.